here's Brody Brazil.
Gonna be honest with you, I make a lot of sports videos, so I never figured that somehow, some way, Ebenezer Scrooge would be part of anything I would discuss or bring up here on the channel. But that is the case. This is the Scrooge Index across Major League Baseball. What is the Scrooge Index? That is so distracting. He's looking right at me there. It's how much teams make in a prior year versus how much they spend on their baseball payroll the next year. And this is not original from me. I've got to give full credit to Travis Sawchik of theScore.ca. theScore is a Canadian sports media organization, so Travis is north of the border doing a great job covering baseball. But it's interesting the way Travis put together this Scrooge Index. Travis used the 2023 team revenues, which is the prior completed season, comparing them to the 2024 team payrolls via Spotrac, which included estimated luxury tax payments. But in the middle of all that is this very important detail. The 2023 team revenues, none of that is ever necessarily scientific. I say that because what team is going to open up the books and tell you exactly how much they made? That's very much privileged and private and secret information, but here's what we do know. Quote, Sportico says some, but not all of its revenue data has been verified. At the very least, it puts us in the ballpark of understanding how much direct baseball revenues are created by clubs. There you go. We're saying that the revenues are not precise. The payrolls certainly are. We can piece together that information a lot better. The revenues are more of that ballpark idea, and they give us perspective. And quite honestly, again, in this situation, we just need some perspective for this. Travis had this on social media. This is where I found out about the Scrooge Index, saying MLB owners are not going to change behavior. See Bob Nutting, the Pirates owner in Pittsburgh, unless there is a system in place to incentivize/compel them to do so. Basically, with a salary cap and a salary floor, unless there are some qualifications on both ends, nothing is going to change. Steve Cohen, Mets owner, is the one outlier. The rest of the group operates targeting similar margins relative to market size. And what you're about to see is that the smaller earning teams are a little bit more Scrooge-like with their money compared to some of the bigger earning teams. This is human nature, Travis says, and it hasn't changed and isn't going to change. Your billionaire owner is likely not going to spend more unless the CBA, the collective bargaining agreement, demands that he does. So I want to throw in some disclaimers here and my thoughts on spending versus winning, which is what ultimately everybody wants, right? The organization, the fans, the players, they all want to win. Spending doesn't always equal winning or titles. I want to make that very clear. There's a lot of teams that, the bigger they are, the harder they fall. Or teams that seem to just spend and not care what they're spending it on. They spend a bit irresponsibly. My point is, if you want to sustain winning, like if you want to stretch your window out, then you have to spend. Because then you have to take that good player and lock that player in for a longer period of time. Or if you had that really high draft pick who's panning out, and in baseball they get past the arbitration years, you got to figure out a way to lock them in. Bobby Witt Jr., Kansas City Royals, same type of situation. If you want to sustain your window and sustain winning, that's when you have to spend. Sometimes you can win without spending. Sometimes you can spend a lot and win, but then it only happens quickly because you spent it on the wrong people. My only point is that if you want to sustain winning, eventually you're going to have to pay for it. The league median, right in the 15th and 16th ranked teams in terms of size of payroll, that's usually a happy medium and a spot of spending and also the results and wins you get out of it. Again, you could win your division, you could have the best record in the American or National League by the end of 162 games, and you may not win or lose the World Series. You may not even get to the World Series. It's just that typically, if you're right on that median line, you give yourself the best chance for what you've spent versus how things could play out. And so there is a connection between spending and winning. It's so evident to see of where exactly it is, but it doesn't always mean that it's going to work out. We also understand that all teams have timing of their situations and that they might pick and choose their moment to go all in versus some teams are going to cut back the payroll for a few years because then they know they're anticipating something. So I'm not going to criticize a team and say, oh, well, they're not spending right now. Let's look at it over 5 and 10 years because over 10 years, there's got to be some go time. right? There's got to be some all-in time. But if we're only looking at it from 2 to 3 years at a time, maybe a team is trying to tighten up their spending again because they're anticipating something for the future. So I'm not always against a team that doesn't always go all in, like, say, the Metropolitans or the Yankees or Dodgers or Red Sox. And here you can see the top half of Major League Baseball in terms of the Scrooge index. And let me just say it like this. 52% is pretty good. The greener the number, or the greener the cell there, kind of on the spreadsheet, the greener the cell, the more Scrooge-like that team is. Like the Red Sox, only spending 40% of their revenue on their team payroll from 2023 to 2024. Does this make sense? I'm trying to let you see this on the screen and digest it. And yes, the Mets are the only outlier who actually spent more than they made revenue-wise. They made $441, they spent $450. I'm sure they were trying to keep it even. They were probably trying to break even. So to go only $9 million over when you're spending $450, I guess that's not a big deal. But yeah, that's the takeaway here, is that the greener you are here in that cell, the more of a Scrooge your team is. And look, there's a lot of teams right here. Happy medium. Atlanta, Philadelphia, Texas, San Francisco, 54, 56%. Yeah, that kind of seems like maybe right where everybody should be, 50-50. Because some people will look at the Giants and say, they're not spending enough. They're not spending like one of these teams up here. Yeah, but they're still in the 50th percentile. So again, what this does, this Scrooge index, it takes into account revenue and payroll, but it puts it here in terms of a percentage, right? Because it's easy to look at all these teams at the top and see what their payroll is. It's more about the percentage of what are you making versus what are you spending, and like what is the absolute difference there. So that's the top half of baseball. Look how much more green there is here on the bottom half of baseball. And you've got teams like the A's at 34%. You've got the Rays at even worse at 32%. You've got the Reds at 39%. Tigers at 36%. So a lot more green on the bottom half of the league. But you also have a team here, and this is organized, by the way, in team revenue. There's the Royals, only pulling in $276 in 2023, but spending $162 the next year. So that is kind of an outlier here among all those green cells. I mean, look at the Rockies. People criticize the Rockies. And again, that might be more of a spending just to spend situation. Look at the Rockies' results. They're not great, but at least they're spending more than 50% of revenue to payroll. So now side by side, here's the whole league in comparison. And again, I realize that this might be small on your screen, but you can just see a lot more green over here and a lot more lighter shades over there. So this is the lower half. This is the upper half. And there is kind of that difference of how baseball teams, generally speaking, approach this. Here are some takeaways. These are not even my takeaways. Usually that's what this is all about, how I feel about something. This is just what the numbers tell us. The Yankees had the biggest difference between revenue and payroll. The Yankees raked in $244 million. Again, they spent a bunch, but they also made that much more. So they were the biggest winners of the bank account. The Mets were the biggest losers, so to speak, but minus $9 million year to year. Again, let's think about all that, but let's also realize that the team's valuations continue to grow, not as much as baseball would like, but it's almost like owning a house. This is like what you made on your house or what you spent on your house year after year. And the point is the value of that house, despite what you spent to fix up the water heater or put a new dishwasher in, despite what you spent, the value of that house traditionally is going up, up, up over the years. So valuations versus what you spent are also different things. Again, we can point out some winners here. Teams that have among the least Scrooge index going against them. The Royals at 59%. The Blue Jays were in there at 61%. The D-backs at 66%. Varying results, but at least they're spending. At least they're trying, or they think they're trying on their extending their window and sustaining it. Then you got the Rays, A's, Tigers, and Reds. Congratulations on being the biggest Scrooges in baseball from 2023 to 2024. And again, all of this is estimated on what their earnings were versus what their payroll was. That's a little bit more clear and concrete. But in terms of what they made versus what they spent, the percentage says it all. Those four teams also, as you saw, represented the bottom 8 teams in total revenue, total estimated revenue. So it just goes to show you, when you're at the bottom, you're a little bit more nervous and cautious about how much you actually spend back. All right, Ebenezer, you're tripping me out. I gotta get him off the screen there. Thanks for watching this video. I'll take your comments. That'd be great. Put them down below. Also, thumbs up while you're down there. That'll help me, this video, and this channel. And one more thing, don't forget to subscribe. That way I can definitely see you back here next time.